Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's NRAS Live. I'm going to give everyone a couple of minutes just to get settled in and to log in on all the different platforms. Right. I don't know about you, but I've had glorious sunshine all day and I am loving it. I cannot grumble. It does make my mood significantly better, which is definitively in the theme of today's talk. Okay, hopefully everyone is in, and thank you so much for attending and spending some of your Thursday evening with us. The topic we're discussing at today's NRAS Live is around stress management and autoimmune conditions. And today marks a special evening as we've planned this to coincide with the Time to Talk Awareness Day, which is a national day to start talking about mental and emotional health, be that with your friends, family, or professionals. Here at NRAS, we specialise in supporting those living with rheumatoid arthritis and juvenile idiopathic arthritis, or RA and JAA as we often shorten them to. RA is one of many autoimmune conditions, and an autoimmune condition is where the body's natural defense, which is your immune system, is just overactive, and it causes it to attack parts of your body. For those living with RA, characteristically, this means that your body is attacking the synovial fluid inside your joints, and this can be what causes joint pain, swelling, and even deformity. RA, as we know, though, doesn't just affect the joints, and it can affect other parts of your body. There are a number of other autoimmune conditions, but today we are going to focus on RA and the tools to help manage stress. I know for a fact that having a long-term condition like RA has a huge impact on your mental and emotional well-being. It's not just physical symptoms that come with having a condition like this. While stress is something that anyone can experience, it can be even more difficult for those living with long-term conditions. Before I was diagnosed, I spent a lot of time not understanding what was happening to me, and often downplaying the effect that this had on both my work and home life. And I'm sure this is something that everyone living with this condition can really sympathise with. And through our helpline, we have many people every day calling about how they manage their condition and the stress that they experience. And we knew that for people living with RA and their families, stress was just an incredibly important issue. And so that's why in 2023, NRAS published the results from a national survey called Stress Matters, which highlighted the impact of stress for those living with inflammatory arthritis. The survey highlighted that stress can come at any stage for anyone, but for somebody with an autoimmune condition, there are often trigger points or things that just make it even more challenging. We saw a whopping 81% of people said that they found their diagnosis process stressful. And I know that diagnosis can be challenging and time-consuming. And when you're already struggling to cope with the physical symptoms that you've got, you often overlook all the emotional effects. People can feel really alone in their journey, and they aren't always willing to speak to people who aren't living with their condition. I know that I was guilty of that one. But stress doesn't just come from your condition. It can be coupled with other just daily external stresses, which can make everything worse. There are people living with conditions who may also experience things like racism or discrimination or troubles with housing or employment or relationships. These are just things that come all the time. And the survey found that 77% of people living with inflammatory arthritis felt that stress from any cause triggered a flare. And we use the term flare as a way to express how your disease might become worse for a period of time or flare up. And this can make the symptoms that you experience all that worse. As I've said, stress comes in many forms and from many places, and stress management is simply that, tools and support that's available to help you manage stress better. And there are many tools available to individuals, but unfortunately our survey found that the majority of people weren't referred or offered support. And so this is the reason it's so important on Time to Talk Day that we're discussing our emotional and mental health and the support that's available to all of us to help manage our stress a little bit better. NRAS has recently released a brand new booklet called Stress Matters in response to the results of our survey. We identified that there was a clear need for people living with RA and JAA to be given practical help for dealing with stress. A link for the brochure has just come up on screen, and hopefully you can see that. There are many suggested methods and tools within that brochure for support, The most common things were things like exercise, meditation, and even just learning about your condition. And at NRAS, we've got a lot of these support tools already available. We have our booklet and resources, our online Smile platform, which has helpful educational modules, as well as even exercise modules. And of course, our dedicated helpline, who I've already spoken about, where you can speak one-to-one with a team member about any issues you may face. One of the key things in our booklet is the importance of talking to peers. 95% of people said that talking to their peers helped reduce stress. And so this is why on Time to Talk Day, it's important to get the conversation going. And so without further ado, I'm very fortunate to be introducing our guest speaker tonight, Nicola, who's from the WREN Project, to give us some additional information about her organisation and how it can help those living with autoimmune conditions. Nicola, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's wonderful, and I've had a sneak peek at your presentation. I'm really excited for you to be showing this to everyone.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully.
I'll pop that on the screen for you now. There we go, lovely. So my name's Nicola Chantler. I'm Head of Communications at the WREN Project. And we've worked with NRAS for quite some time now. We kind of work as a charity partner with NRAS, but we're quite a different, we're a charity as well within the UK, but quite a different charity. So I'm going to talk a little bit about who the WREN Project are, how we began, what we do, and obviously very much in line with talking about stress and the impact of our listening support on stress. So we, as a charity, offer one-to-one listening support, and we offer it to people throughout the UK who live with any autoimmune disease. So we're not a disease-specific charity. Our support is available to anyone undergoing any autoimmune condition. And our aim as a charity is to reduce some of the loneliness, the distress, the grief and the isolation that many feel following a life-changing diagnosis of an autoimmune disease. Our support is free, it's remote, so you can join from anywhere in the UK, and it's currently available to anyone over the age of 18. Our support's run by trained volunteers, and our volunteers don't need to have any personal experience of autoimmune disease or actually any particular qualifications to join us. We simply look for people who are warm, empathetic, and who want to support someone else during a difficult time. And it's thanks to them that we're able to help people navigate the challenges of an autoimmune disease diagnosis. So we're currently the only charity in the UK to support people living with all autoimmune diseases. And we understand that there's a need for mental and emotional health support to navigate the impact of a diagnosis. And we feel very strongly that individuals need spaces to talk openly and honestly about how they're feeling, with no judgment or advice. So we support anyone, as I said, with an autoimmune disease, and that might be someone with one or more autoimmune diseases. We reach out to people, or have people reach out to us, who are in a time of distress, and they're aged 18 and older and based in the UK. And all that anybody needs to be able to access our support is to have access to a phone or a computer. So typically all of our calls are held over an online video call. Some of them are held over the phone as well. And just that they have a private space in which to talk to us. And the support sessions run every fortnight. So as I said, we have an incredible team of volunteers, and we're really grateful to each and everyone who joins us. And they're able to provide this listening support to people in a time of distress. So their support, as I said, comes fortnightly through video or telephone calls. And the kind of support we offer, as I mentioned, we're not an advisory charity. So this is where we kind of work really well with charity partners such as NRAS, because we're here to offer listening support. So we're not here to give disease-specific advice. That's where we would recommend someone go on to a disease-specific charity such as NRAS. And we give people a place to talk really openly and honestly about what that experience is. And that means that they can talk about how their disease is affecting their life, kind of the ups and downs of life itself and how that's affected by their autoimmune disease. So as I said, volunteers don't need to have a personal experience because we're not giving out disease specific advice. So we just look for people who really want to support somebody and are willing to give their time. So our kind of why we exist, and I've pulled together some words that we've had from people who've experienced our support, and some of them are really quite powerful. So this is one from, so we talk about the people who come to us for support, we call them our WRENs. So this is a statement from one of our WRENs. I would have given up by now without the WREN Project. And another one that shares just how they're grateful for our support and how it perhaps came at a time where they really needed it. So we recently ran our 2024 impact report, came out at the tail end of last year. And we found that 86% of those who come to us for support are in a period of real distress. So we serve to address the inaccessible, sometimes inadequate, inexistent access to emotional and mental health support for people diagnosed with autoimmune disease. And we really understand that living with an incurable disease can be isolating, it can be really exhausting. And it requires repeated explanation to friends, employers, and sometimes even doctors. So beyond the physical disability of an autoimmune disease, we know that symptoms such as anxiety, depression, loneliness, body dysmorphia, grief are really life-altering, and they're often seen as secondary to the medical, especially in the overstretched NHS. So the average wait time for a diagnosis is roughly around 7 years. And we know that often we will have WRENs who come to us who really have waited such a long time to be able to have a diagnosis and then actually start to receive the support that they need. So we're a community that really understands that. And I've just included in the pink, there's a little quote there. One of the initiatives that we have at the WREN Project is we offer our WRENs, so people who come to us for support, or anyone affected by autoimmune disease, to come and talk to us, to share their story, perhaps to inspire others to talk openly about how they're feeling. So that's a quote from a recent WREN, we call them WREN Voices, so our real life stories. And that's a recent quote from one of our stories. And you can read all of those on our website. And this is a quote from our wonderful founder and CEO, Kate Middleton. And Kate began the WREN Project just over 4 years ago. She has an autoimmune disease herself. And her kind of drive and inspiration to set up the WREN Project really came from her own experience. And having, she was diagnosed at 17 with lupus. She's gone on to be diagnosed with many other autoimmune diseases. And she often talks about how that road to diagnosis, and indeed diagnosis itself and life with autoimmune diseases, can be a very lonely one. Sometimes you can feel that your voice isn't necessarily heard. And these are some of the words that she kind of shared for this talk today. So there are 6 million people in the UK that feel like I do, silenced, isolated, mad, a lonely community, but one that we can help feel heard. The WREN Project delivers the answer. It's called listening. We don't provide the solution because there is no solution. We just hear how bad it is without trying to make it feel better. We let people feel how they really feel, no gloss or shine. And when those 6 million people feel listened to, we feel like normal people again. We feel less broken, less damaged, because feeling listened to is really powerful and life-changing. And I feel, to me, even reading those words again feels like such a powerful thing. It goes to show how when we validate someone's experience, when we truly listen to them, how powerful that can be for the person and their experience. So a little bit about our impact. As I mentioned, we brought out our 2024 impact report at the tail end of last year. So this is compiled and analysed by independent statisticians and patient groups in partnership with Cambridge University. And we reviewed the impact of the WREN Project over a 12-month period. So we showed that when people apply to us, and you can apply to the WREN Project by simply going onto our website, and there's an application form. And I can talk through a little bit more about that perhaps after. But when people apply to us, 90% feel really lonely, 86% feel distressed, 76% have no hope for the future, and 72% are experiencing extreme fatigue. So the data from this initial assessment was then compared to how our WRENs feel after a period of 6 months of support from us. We feel really, really proud of our achievements. And it just really kind of resonates and makes clear that we can make a real and lasting difference to those living in crisis with autoimmune disease. Our support significantly improves well-being across all indicators, allowing RENs to face the future with optimism. So you can see there our support, 100% say 100% of those who were surveyed say our support makes them feel better. 95% would recommend us on. 92% found our support was easy to access. So, and again, there's another little quote there, and we often have, many people come to us who've been through our service and kind of share their feelings and how they found the experience. So, and here's another little snapshot from our impact report, and it just kind of goes to show that while we are a non-advisory charity, and as you can see from Kate's words as well, we're not looking to fix or change the situation, because we can't do that, but we can create space for people to talk really openly. And it's wonderful to be able to see these results come through from that period of listening support. So people might feel more connected to the people closest to them, and that feels like a really powerful one for me, actually, because I feel that a lot of people, I'm a volunteer myself, and I know a lot of people will say that there is that a diagnosis can make you feel that feeling perhaps of being alone in that experience. So being able to sort of reconnect with people around you, feeling less distressed, better able to adapt with changes. So this is really important to us. It gives us impetus to keep going, to keep sharing what we do. And again, I've included so many wonderful quotes, but of people who really share kind of how they found us perhaps during a really dark time, and how the experience has made such a positive change for them in their lives. So I mentioned a little bit about REN Voices and these real stories, and this is something I feel particularly passionate about, particularly since so many people will come to us and say that, particularly with the long road to diagnosis, they felt quite silenced for such a long time. Perhaps they felt that, they weren't necessarily, there's been a long journey to get there, and within that journey, that can have been really hard. So people, often feel that they want to share how that experience is, and it really does impact others, and perhaps might inspire others to come and receive support from us. So these are a couple of quotes from a few different people. And yeah, just having a read through, it talks about how we've able to sort of meet somebody in a particular stressful time, and how they feel that it's really had such a positive impact on their lives. So we truly believe that person-centered listening has a real impact on an individual's distress levels, and this is evident in the feedback that we receive from both our RENs and the data that we collate. And just being able to give somebody, as I said, that space in which to share how they're truly feeling, with no sort of risk of anyone trying to make it better or make a suggestion. And we know that there's a real place for that. There's a huge place for advice, but that's something where we would link out to somebody else. But here we are just giving someone a space just to share all that they feel, and for that to be really welcomed. So yes, some more words here, and it's a lot of people who would come through our support as well kind of want to hear how can I support you, or if perhaps you're just coming to the WREN Project and hearing about us, how can you support us going forward. We're a really small charity, and we really appreciate any support that comes our way. So we rely a lot on the kindness and generosity of our supporters to help us achieve our mission. So we often have people come, there's a picture of this, actually this guy with his bike. This is Dylan. So he's a really fantastic supporter. He's done a huge amount of charity work for us, and some really, really unbelievable feats. He cycled something like 100 kilometers last year for us. So he's really amazing. So we really appreciate people who come and say, I want to do a run, or I want to do a walk, or, I host a coffee morning or something like that. So those are really welcome with us. And you also have the opportunity, we receive one-off donations or regular donations, and if you become a regular donor, you can join our WREN Club, but it's part of a community of people who are really passionate about supporting people living with autoimmune disease. So yeah, there's lots of kind of opportunities of things that you can do there. And I've just popped here a slide just of how you can get in touch. So as I've mentioned, perhaps we'll probably have a talk as well about ways in which you can apply as to be a REN and receive our support, or to be a volunteer. So that's all of that's available on our website, and anyone who's watching has got a phone in front, you can just use those QR codes just to scan and kind of get in touch. And whether it's with a question, whether it's to find out a bit more, all of our information is there. So that was kind of a whistle stop tour of REN. So yeah, over to you if you've got any questions.
Thank you so much, Nicola. That was fantastic. And it's lovely to hear kind of what is available. I think that's one of the main things that I struggled with when I was first being diagnosed and kind of going through it. You don't really know where to turn. There isn't anybody other than your family and friends who are just trying to support you largely through the kind of physical stuff with a condition like RA. You know, when I was first diagnosed, I was really unwell, really poorly. My mobility was really bad. I was some days unable to get out of bed. So they're more focused on helping you physically. And sometimes, as I said in my opening, the kind of emotional stuff gets almost pushed to not as important. And I think from your presentation, we can see that is so important. Those statistics that you gave for loneliness and, hope for the future and distress, they were such high percentages, and I can completely resonate with those. And it's really good to see that things like the WREN Project and talking about it makes that much of a difference to people, that they do feel so much better.
Definitely. And I think it's, like you said, I think when you're when you're faced with a diagnosis, very much kind of, the first kind of things that happen seem to be okay, how do we address what's happening? How do we address the kind of physical aspects, whether it's sorting out medication and things like that, and addressing those kind of almost the things that you can kind of see and feel that like tangible, I can deal with that. But actually, obviously, there's a lot that's going on in, for a lot of people, the diagnosis of an autoimmune disease is life-changing. Your day-to-day life is changed completely. And, I know, as I said, as a volunteer, and I would speak to people and it would be like, you didn't even know what this thing was. I've suddenly got this disease. What is it? You have to learn about these things. And then sometimes they can feel almost like there's information overload, and it's all of those things. And that really takes a toll on our mental health, on our emotions, how we're feeling. And often people feel, and we often have this at WREN, where somebody will say, we don't want to then burden our loved ones with, oh, I'm not feeling great today, and actually this is really difficult. So being able to have a space in which they can say all of those things out loud, and not have somebody, try to make it better, or, almost kind of take away from that experience. You're allowed to feel all of these things. And that's as important as addressing as the physical and the medical side.
Yeah, completely. And I know, my loved ones, for example, they were stressed themselves because they wanted to make sure that I was looked after. So me unloading more stress probably wasn't good. So having an independent person to kind of talk it through and talk through what you may be feeling it's a nice way of almost detaching those parts, so that you can, as you said, talk openly and honestly about how you're struggling or how you're feeling, or any sense. I was 26, 27, so I had my whole aspirations, my whole life almost planned, and then to have something like this, it does feel like your world has just been upended, and the plans that you had, or the things that you hoped to do, it all just kind of goes to the wayside. And yes, the focus has to be on your physical health and making sure that you're on the right medications and doing things. But I think especially today, it's important to acknowledge how good talking and how good the rest of it is. Okay, so if anyone in the audience has any specific questions, please post them on whatever platform you are watching this on. We've got a couple. So the first one is for me around, are there any other ways we can manage stress? So we've spoken about talking, which is so important. We do mention in our booklet other ways in which you can help manage stress. Through our research, we looked at what people say and how they manage their stress. Things like exercise and nutrition and meditation. There's a whole range of things, and we give some, but it is important to know that it's not just you need to do this and therefore your stress will go away. I don't think that's going to be how it works, but it's tools in which you can use to help manage stress. So for me, exercise is a big one, but when I was really unwell, that wasn't something that I could do consistently or effectively. And so it's finding new ways in which it helps you. So through our Smile modules, we've got some exercise that you can do sat down that are really gentle and friendly. So if you want to look at some of those, it is, it's something that we can look at. Nicola, one for you. How does it actually begin, the process of speaking to somebody, and do you try and pair people up at all? How does that work?
So that's a great question. So how it works is that we ask everybody to fill out the application form on the website, and that just gives us an indication of, obviously your details, the kind of key things we need to know. And once you've filled out that form, which is just easily accessible on our website, just go to apply for support. And then someone from our wonderful operations team will ring you, and then they'll have a talk through and explain a little bit more about what kind of listening support is, because for a lot of people, you might not have encountered listening support or kind of have an idea of how that works. And then once you've kind of got an idea that, active listening is kind of a way in which you can talk openly about how you're feeling, that we don't give advice and things like that. But we're here as a space for you, a regular space for you to talk about how you're feeling. So then if somebody says, I'd like to go ahead with support, you get matched with a volunteer. So you kind of give, the operations team will ask you, what's your availability for calls? These calls are fortnightly. They run for up to 6 months. So you might say, I'm free, in the daytimes at lunchtime or in the evenings. And then you get paired with a trained volunteer, and you meet that same volunteer every fortnight. And that allows, obviously, the WREN, the person who's needing support, and the volunteer to build a rapport, get to know each other, and to sort of feel really, for the WREN to feel really comfortable with talking to that regular person. So then they'll arrange a time that you'll meet, and you'll have this video call typically, or a phone call if it needs to be that, and that will be at the same time every 2 weeks. So you'll have that to run for up to 6 months. And then there will be a period during that where you'll have a review, and you'll kind of share as the WREN, as somebody having the support, how it's going, kind of if, and there's lots of points that you get to check in as well with the operations team. They're really fantastic about, if appointments, obviously, sometimes life happens, you need to rearrange things, so there's always someone that you're available to speak to have any kind of conversation about any of it and how you're finding it. And then after that period of 6 months, the support comes to the end, but you're then given lots of opportunity to kind of, be part of our community in a way. And if you want to re-refer, so sometimes we will have a WREN, someone having support, have 6 months, and then they'll have a break for 3 months. And then they might say, actually, I could still really benefit from some more listening support, in which case you just re-refer, and then you'd get paired again with a new volunteer.
That's amazing. It sounds like such a wonderful system to try and connect with people as well. Because as your results showed, the loneliness is such a big part of it. For me, I'm the only one of my kind of circle of friends that have been diagnosed with something like this. So it can feel like everyone is kind of moving at a pace of an ordinary 30-year-old and doing all these wonderful things. And then you're kind of in a situation where you can't engage as much. I know Tina's commented on YouTube that people tend not to acknowledge or understand high-level stress, anxiety, and fatigue. It is very real. And that is definitely something that it's those invisible things that are happening to you, and they might be causing you stress, or they might be caused by stress. And it's knowing what things might trigger it, how you can help it, but also as through the WREN Project, just talking about it, just acknowledging that it exists, and that it is there. And even if you can't see it, we are all experiencing it. And I know through NRAS, we've got loads of booklets to help with this. We've got one called Fatigue Matters, which obviously pushes about what fatigue is, how you can help manage it. And one of your comments that you made in your presentation was around having to explain yourself every single time to family, to friends, to work, to, you know, anybody that you meet. It's almost like a recurrent theme of just having to go, oh, I'm tired, and somebody goes, oh yeah, I'm tired too, and you're like, yeah, but this is a little bit more than that. And I completely resonate with the feeling of this is not just normal. And while everyone may experience some of it, I think there is that element for people with autoimmune conditions that it can just be that little bit worse, or it might just be different in a way. So yeah, that's amazing. Okay, let me see if we've got any more questions.
And just
Tina, you've commented again that you've used, sorry.
No, just while you're scanning for questions, I was just going to add that I think it's really important as well that, like you said, that, you know, somebody living with an autoimmune condition will have, you know, their own symptoms, and, you know, as you say, you'll then talk about it in a regular conversation with someone, and they'll say, oh, you know, I feel really tired too. And there's often a comparison that happens in regular conversation, but in a listening support session with a volunteer, you're not receiving it's not about their story, it's they're just creating a space for you to talk openly. So it kind of takes out that kind of sometimes that dilution that sometimes can feel that can happen when you share your experience in another setting. And I feel that there's something that's really validating and really that brings another element of support that I feel I've been really heard in my experience.
Yeah, and I think it's the point that no one condition or no one diagnosis is the same, that your journey with your condition can be so different. And if you've got more than one condition, or even if you've got the same condition, people experience things differently. And then, as I said in my opening, you know, life stresses come in as well. And so it's not just, you know, as you are experiencing your condition, it's also things about work and relationships and, you know, just general financial issues or anything else that comes up. It's so in one of the questions in the WREN project, can you talk about more than just your condition? Can you talk about your kind of life as well outside of it?
Yes, and that's a great question, actually, because I think there is often a kind of preconception that when we talk about the WREN project and what we do, that you have to show up to that appointment with, oh, I've got to talk about this. No, you can absolutely talk about, because we like to kind of try to shape it so that people understand that you can talk about all of your life and how your autoimmune disease is affecting all of your life. So no, you absolutely don't need to turn up with this has happened. It's more just it's you might see it as a conversation that happens. So you're checking in with someone every 2 weeks and you're just sharing about how you're feeling. And so that can be anything that's happened within that time, within the past, within, worries about the future or whatever that is. It doesn't need to be strictly about, oh, here are my symptoms as an example. Sometimes it will be that. Sometimes it will be that, just how you're feeling and knowing that that's very, very affected by your diagnosis.
Yeah. And this is it. I often feel that sometimes your diagnosis is just a label and then that's your defining feature. And I think it's really hard sometimes to get past that. I almost have like a before I was diagnosed and after I was diagnosed, and I almost look at them as like two separate lives. And it's taken me quite a few years to kind of get into the swing of, that's something that I have, that's not something that I am. And it is that kind of feeling of separating the two, rather than it just being I have to go over the same thing because that's all I kind of have. Joanna on Facebook has commented that she's had cancer recently too, and only just realised that RA is an incurable disease. I don't get the same understanding with RA, and it's been really helpful hearing your description of your experience. So thank you, Joanna, for commenting. And it's really hard. I think there are often, when you have diagnosis like cancer, they're very widely known. And so when you say to somebody, I've got cancer, that's something that's very understandable to most people. But when you say you have something like an autoimmune condition or you have rheumatoid arthritis, you have to go almost in like a medical definition of, okay, and this is what it does, and this is how it affects me. And it becomes like a rote subject that you're just saying all the time.
Absolutely. And I think, we know that obviously there are so many autoimmune diseases that a lot of people don't know about, that they might not have heard of. And as you kind of accurately said there, cancer is something that we hear in almost our everyday, and so sometimes it does feel very much like, and that comes back to that repeated explanation that a lot of people with an autoimmune disease feel that they have to give. And yeah, I have to run down what that means because people don't understand. And then because obviously an autoimmune disease, we know that they can flare, they can go into remission, but they are incurable. So that's why a lot of people then have that added, and this obviously can bring again a greater sense of stress that I have to keep reiterating how I'm feeling, and almost trying to, so, some people might even feel that to somebody who doesn't know what I'm experiencing, they don't have any insight into how that really feels, both in my both in how I'm feeling emotionally, mentally, and physically.
Yeah, and I think it's really hard, like when you want to continue doing things that bring you joy. So I love walking my dog or going to music concerts or going on holiday and things like that. And when you are faced with the difficulty of not being able to enjoy those things or not being able to do those things, that can have such a turmoil on yourself. Jackie on YouTube has commented that she or he, I'm so sorry, I find that I am not keen to go to events if I know someone is going with a cold. And that's sometimes people don't appreciate or understand the additional risk that you might go through if you are somebody who's immunocompromised or on medication that causes you to be immunocompromised. Yeah, this is not understood. The regular phrase is, it's just a cold, you should still come. And it's that lack of understanding. And this is where being able to share with people what the condition is and point them to things like, our booklets, like the resources, to say, you can educate yourself too, to make my life better, because it shouldn't just be that you have to continually go into that thing of kind of repeating yourself all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. Let me just see if there are any new ones coming up. But it is really hard for people. And I think that I imagine for people kind of younger, if you said that Kate, your CEO, was 17 when that's so young.
And
It's so young.
And at whatever stage of life you're diagnosed, it's still very difficult. I think Kate will often share when she talks about her experience, that she talks about she was due to go on her gap year, and it's like she had all this kind of adventurous time ahead of her, and her life was kind of was kind of ground to a halt as she had to then deal with a lupus diagnosis. And so I think it's very difficult. I mean, we hope to be able to meet as many people as we can and support as many people as we can. Currently, we only offer support to people over the age of 18, but we absolutely hope to be able to change that at some point. But it is very difficult, and these are life-changing things, and that's again where perhaps you might even not know. We, in a recent WREN Voice, so when I talked about those real life stories where we do a sort of a little interview with someone who has an autoimmune disease or who's been affected by autoimmune disease, and some people say they've had a diagnosis and you don't even know yourself what that is. And so that's another a really big thing to understand, for yourself to understand, and then for other people to understand, and how it affects the course of your life.
Yeah. One of the questions we've had is about support for people ongoing. So just to say here that we've spoken a lot about newly diagnosed and people who are at the start of their journey, but obviously the support that we have at NRAS and the support at WREN is available at whatever point in your life or in your diagnosis journey that you are. So don't feel that it has to be that starting point. And you can get support at any stage.
Yes, absolutely. We regularly have, our WRENs are, you know, maybe years past a diagnosis, might have been recently diagnosed. Really, it's about offering these resources, you know, offering, for example, offering our listening support, the wonderful resources you have at NRAS at any point during that journey. Just whenever you need support, know that these things are here for you.
Yeah, amazing. We've had Joanna comment about chronic stress for 18 months. So I'm so sorry to hear that, and that you've had a flare up with your RA. It is really important to make sure that you are keeping on top of your physical health as well as your emotional health. So thank you for sharing that, Joanna. And we have looked at the link between stress and RA, and as I said at the start, 77% of people we surveyed said that their stress has caused a flare, and that's something that is quite common. I know it's something that I experience. If I'm in a period of stress, I can feel it. You know, I will start getting more symptoms. I will start noticing things more, and I can link them back to what has caused me stress. So I know where my triggers are, but it is hard for people. You know, I've got somebody who I know has this and has children. That is another kind of life stress of having children and managing a busy life and household. And so it is really important to talk and to get the support that you need, but also to educate yourself and educate others. We've got loads of support available for both you as an individual living with this, but also for your family members, friends, anybody who wants to learn. I think it's really important to push that as well, that people can get educated and they can be in a position where they can support you better. And that's really all we want here, is we want the person living with this condition to be as well supported. So one other question we've got is the WREN available for family, or is it just the person who's been affected or the person diagnosed with an autoimmune condition?
So that's a really great question. And we will actually have some more resources coming up actually in the next few months, so that where we hope to be able to offer our support a little bit wider to, you know, to loved ones affected by autoimmune disease. So I'd recommend to that person, please get in touch via our website, and I will be able to share that information with you in the coming months.
Amazing. And just to reiterate, NRAS has our helpline, which is available Monday to Friday, and we're available for people living with RA, JAA and their families. Anyone who needs support, we can offer it there. And obviously, as Nicola said, they are a listening charity, but we are an advice support service. So I think I'm going to say that is the end of the questions, and I'm so grateful, Nicola, for you giving up your Thursday evening to talk to me. And I think it's been great today on Time to Talk Day to actually talk about what is going on and how we can all support each other. I do think this is just it's a fantastic community. When you find it and when you're in it, it's fantastic. But if you are on the outskirts or you're not quite there and you don't have the support, it's knowing that it exists, knowing that it's there. You know, we in your survey and in our survey, we both found that you're not getting referred, you're not getting that support. So this is why we wanted today to really talk about all of these things are available. They're available through loads of organisations, NRAS and you at WREN Project, and just this opportunity to speak about things and to engage with our community is just fantastic. So thank you so much, Nicola. Thank you everybody listening and watching, and for those of you who are re-watching, thank you so much. Hopefully you've got all of our support services in a list somewhere. There's loads of things going across the bottom. So please look at our website. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you everyone for your questions.
Thanks, Nicola.
Take care.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.